If you have been bullying Warrior this past year, it's time to say I'm sorry, because Garrosh is coming back with vengeance. You guys have spoken, and enough people have come up to tell me that they want more card reveals from me, so I'm deciding that I'm going to go ahead and reveal as many as these cards come out that I'm able to. I do have some plans coming on these next couple of days, so this isn't going to be something I'm going to do for every single new reveal, but I will reveal the cards that I believe are probably either the most powerful or probably the most fun. And to be honest, this Warrior deck is probably a good combination of both of those ideas. And well, just to give you guys sort of an idea of what's going on, there's a new thread that unfortunately we're not going to be able to look because it's in a different language and I'm not able to translate it. But INVEN.co ended up getting a card reveal for this new Warrior Legendary. Now, what exactly does this Legendary do? It's pretty insane. It's called blackrock rock and roll, or I'm sorry, Black Rock and Roll. I'm gonna mess this up a bunch, I bet. But it's a 5-mana legendary that gives all your minions in your deck attack and health equal to their cost. Now, if you have a Grom HELLSCREAM, does this mean that your Grom is going to be an 8/8, or does this mean that it's going to have its stats added? It's going to have its stats added. This does not reset the power of the card like I thought it was at first based off of this wording, but no. But the way that this card actually works with Grom is that you're not setting your Grom into an 8/8. You're actually adding the cost of its mana to its original stats. So your Grom, or if you happen to double it up with Lorthamar, we'll come back here in a second. But if you end up playing this card on Grom, you add 8 to its attack and to its health. And same thing with like a Trench Stalker, you would add 9 to its attack and to its health. So for Grom, you would have a 12-17 minion, and for Trench Stalker, you would have a 17-18 minion. And now let's go back to the Lorthamar. What happens when you double those stats? Your Grom becomes a 24-34, and then your Trench Stalker becomes a 34-38, I believe. So, yeah. Suddenly, Warrior has very real ways of dealing 30 damage by turns 8, turn 9. Granted, you do kind of need the perfect curve and to keep yourself alive in the early game. But on turn 5, you can just easily play this and play Lorthamar, and the possibilities are... I was about to say endless, but there's really not endless possibilities in Warrior right now. But there are a lot of cards that can hit face. So, like, again, Grom, Trench Stalker. The article over here ended up talking about its synergies potential with, of course, Lorthamar, potentially with Invincible, but I don't really think this matters all too much because Undead Warrior doesn't sound too good to me. However, these other legendaries, like Ramornia and Olgra, for example, can be extremely powerful with this. So, like, this getting a 12 attack, for example, a 12 attack Ramornia, 12-17. So you attack, and then you get a 12 attack weapon immediately. Anyone thinking of Draka right now? You should be, because guess what? If you play Lorthamar on top of that, then this weapon is going to be 24 damage. 24 damage. Olgra doesn't nearly seem as good because you need minions to have been damaged on the field. And let me just go ahead and look up some English versions of these cards. But if we look at the cards that are available for Warrior right now, like Olgra may not exactly fit the bill, but Ramornia, and I love that I have this in Golden, absolutely fits it. And I can't wait to see this card dealing like 24 damage. Now, aside from the legendaries that you would maybe want to add into this deck, you definitely don't add Lothar, and he's rotating out, so that is something to keep in mind. Another thing to keep in mind, though, is that From the Depths ends up becoming a possible OTK again, because I'm not sure if this is actually going to happen. But let's say OTK Warrior becomes a thing again, and we end up running Faceless Manipulators. You are not going to need Battleground Battlemaster. You are probably just going to need 2 minions, the original minion that's buffed, and a Faceless Manipulator in order to end games. And something else to keep in mind is that To the Fronts is a card that is not going to be staying in the meta unless this gets added into the core set. And I don't imagine this card is going to be sticking around here for another expansion because, I mean, Charge Warrior did have its time in the sun, but I believe they're going to try and take a different approach to Warrior. And with this new Legendary, I think this would just be a bit too much in order to make these gigantic minions also have even more mana cheap possible. And again, I think From the Depths is probably a good, like this is all the deck really needs. Like at 4 mana, this feels very, very fine because on turn 4 you can literally get one of your big cards discounted. You can play the Rock and Roll, you can play Lorthamar, and then you can play Finley in order to hopefully set up some kind of combo. Depending on what cards you want to add to your deck. But more likely, the best way to use this is to play turn 5 Rock and Roll, play this on turn 6, try to get one of the big cards already added to your hand, because if Lorthamar isn't already in hand, then you just want to activate this card and get some mana cheat brewing. But I mean, at 4 mana, this card is still very awkward because you need to be hopefully doing something else. But mana cheat and warrior with this gigantic stats is not something that you should take lightly. Granted, Warrior also has this Fire of Sinajari into Tony combo, or Tony King of Piracy, that can easily delete the opponent's deck. But in case that deck is bait, Warrior is looking like it has some very legitimate options. Although, one thing that I am noticing is that we are hyper-fixating on some of these legendary spells, thinking that this is going to be the main meat and potatoes of the deck. And well, I hate to say it, but the meat and potatoes of the deck are going to be the minions that you're more likely going to be playing more than the spell. So maybe if Warrior has a way of drawing, say, a fire spell, I don't know if there's any cards like that that have been released yet, but if Warrior gets a card that can tutor out this legendary card, then it will raise the stats of this deck significantly. But if that card isn't in the rotation or isn't printed, I imagine this is probably going to be more of like another way that Control Warrior can win, rather than being like the absolute main win condition you're going to win with this every single time, sort of like with Phylactery Warlock, where you obviously need the Phylactery in order to win the game. But at the same time, I really want charge damage from Warrior specifically to be somewhat relevant in this metagame. And it's just been, Warrior's been too weak for too long, and I believe these cards are a good first step to hopefully solving the Warrior problem of it not existing on ladder. And don't forget, everybody, if you do enjoy this kind of content, feel free to like this video and subscribe to the YouTube channel to be notified about any of our future updates. Hopefully, I was able to give you guys some sort of new perspective on these cards, and that's really the whole point of these videos, is for me to talk about my first ideas, and maybe you guys have a light bulb that turns on where it's like, yes. And that's exactly what I want to do to the Hearthstone community. I want to give you guys as many ideas as possible to inspire you to make the coolest decks you possibly can. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this video, and we'll see you for the next one.